So what's up, fellow music makers? I am Legend, and in today's video we're comparing the 4 best AI stem splitters that you can get on the market today to help you in your music production workflow. In the simplest terms, a stem is an individual track in the music project that you're working on. So a stem splitter is going to be something that separates the individual tracks from an uploaded audio file. Now, because there are tons of options out there, some of these splitters will have better quality, some of them will be able to separate the sounds a little bit better than the others, and depending on which splitter you get, you're going to have different features included. And we're going to be looking into all of these different factors in addition to how much it's going to cost you for each of these to see if that value really stacks up to the price and what's going to be the best choice for you. So the 4 splitters we're going to be comparing today is going to be Fadr, LANDR Stems, Moises, and LALAL.AI. I hate saying that name. So let's start with comparison number 1, which is going to be vocal extraction.
Every day I do the work, and unlike you, what I do is impossible. Yeah, every day you try to search someone like me, how to find it's impossible. Yeah.
Let's check out our 4 different options.
Every day I do the work, and unlike you, what I do is impossible. Yeah, every day I do the work, and unlike you, what I do is impossible. Yeah, every day I do the work, and unlike you, what I do is impossible. Yeah, every day I do the work, and unlike you, what I do is impossible. Yeah.
Okay. Fadr, I would say the output of the vocal is pretty good. It was very present and I could hear everything that the lead vocal was saying. But with that being said, the background harmonies were almost nowhere to be found. I also noticed like this subtle sibilant hiss that was like layered on top of my vocals, which made listening to them not as pleasing as I would like it to be. And with LANDR, the vocals were definitely present and the dynamics were good once again, but I felt like LANDR did a much better job with capturing those background oohs. You'll also notice that there's much less instrumental bleed. So we do hear a tiny bit of the horn come in at the beginning of the line. In this vocal, I don't think it was as present as it was before. When the track is more busy, so there's more instrumentation happening, I do notice that Moises has a harder time with separating those different instruments and vocals without the dynamics shifting so much. As for LALAL, I think this captured the most of those ooh background harmonies that's happening. Even though this one has a subtle hiss to it as well, I would say it's on par with LANDR Stems. And it was perfect until all of those background harmonies disappeared. Now I want to see how our drum splits went. For reference, this is how the verse sounds. All right, let's give it a try. Fadr's drum splits were definitely good. I did notice a little bit of tone morphing or shifting that was happening specifically in the shaker. It was kind of like this sound. I do like that there is no bleed here. I do think that that's usable definitely in some sort of project or remix. Now, LANDR's clarity in comparison has little to no fuzz added to the overall sound of the drums. Those transients sound really good. I do hear that bottom end of the kick and that little tiny pop of the snap. And of the 4, I do think that the clarity and the cleanliness of this particular split is probably the best one. Moises' drum split, I would say, is easily the worst sounding quality of all 4 of these. It had the most inconsistent clarity. And generally, the drums here are not as punchy as any of our other options, so it kind of hurts the groove of this part of the song. It doesn't really sound the same. It doesn't have the same feel. LALAL actually had a really good separation here. All the instruments that are supposed to be there are there. Sounds were really clear and upfront, and even though this had some subtle shifts in the EQ, I would say that this is one of, if not the best option for stemming out drums in this case. As for the bass in the song, there's only going to be one place that the bass is featured, and that's going to be in the chorus.
Every day you gotta search someone like me, how to find it's impossible. Yeah.
I'll be honest. What? Fadr's bass extraction, let's talk about the good. So first of all, there's no instrumental bleed happening on the chorus here. With that being said, the bass doesn't really sound accurate to how it sounded when I produced the song. There's this subtle like rattle on the higher end of the frequency that makes it sound like it's got this ringing to it, like wah, wah. With LANDR, however, this option I would say was the most accurate to the original production. I remember what that bass sounded like, and it had a nice, muted, warm tone, that sub bass, and LANDR retained all that quality. There were no extra artifacts. This was pretty much exactly how I wanted it to sound. Moises is a bit of the same story. It does sound much like the original bass. There's like a subtle like wah, 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 kind of like an envelope type of sound. Well, LALAL's bass extraction, on the other hand, is the least accurate one that we have here. Not only was it missing in the first 6 counts, it cuts out at the end, and even when it does come in, it's cutting in and out. The dynamics are not consistent. I could never use this in an actual song. It's unusable. Now let's go ahead and move on to what's called our other instruments. So basically anything that's not a bass, that's not a drum, that's not a vocal. For reference, here is what we should be hearing, minus the drums, of course. All right, let's check it out. There's the bass. For Fadr's instrumental split, overall, the essence is there, the chord progressions are there, you can tell what's happening, but it's just not clear. It sounds like it's being played underwater somewhere. You know, it's got that muffled tone. And even worse, if you were to go for the multi-instrumental separation where it splits your pianos from your strings and your guitars and all that stuff, it's even less accurate. There's like a subtle distortion happening as it's trying to find what to split these tracks into. LANDR, I am hearing things a bit more clear and concise. There's less vocal bleed happening. We are getting more of that attack in the piano. In addition to that, I can also hear the chords playing as well. So they're not like super loud, but they're there. Moises had me kind of confused because when I first played these, I didn't know if I was playing the drum stems or the instrument stems. Because the drums are bleeding so much into our instrumentation, it's almost like they're just a part of this stem. And this is the main problem that I had with LALAL's extraction. Our entire bass is encompassed in the other instruments, and that's not a good thing because our bass was supposed to be on the bass stem. And this is something that you want to think about when you're paying for a service to do something and it's not able to do it. For usability and interface, Fadr and LANDR are going to be pretty similar because they're the most simplified versions of what these stem extractors are. They're very easy to understand and to navigate around for a very streamlined workflow. While Fadr does have both a plugin and a web option, I was not able to get the plugin to work in Logic Pro. Oh, that's not a good look. Try this. Okay, so we're gonna have to use the website. And the web option does have some bugs in it that made usability a little bit more difficult for me. For instance,
Every day you gotta search.
what is happening? I promise you I'm not doing this on purpose. It makes the whole process and workflow frustrating to deal with. Whereas LANDR, which also has a plugin option and a web option, both of these worked flawless for me. Even the ability to use the plugin to drag and drop those stems directly from the plugin, I think that really helped my workflow and my creative process. Now for Moises, they have a plugin, an app, and a web option, and all of them look basically the same. Of all these plugins, I would say that that look is my favorite one because it looks the most like a DAW, so it makes navigating around pretty easy, especially if you have experience with DAWs. Lastly, with LALAL, we have a web option and an application option. They do have a plugin, but it's not available yet. For me, this interface was the least inspiring and the most confusing to use. Because it was so frustrating to navigate, sometimes the audio wouldn't even play when I would click the play button. The playhead would move, but there's no sound.
Someone like me, hard to find, it's impossible.
And in me trying to figure this out, the page ended up refreshing and it ended up charging me more credits for the exact same stem split that I just did. which if that were to happen to me in a real life scenario during a production session, I would crash out. Fadr has both a free and a paid plan. With the free plan, you're going to be limited to basic separations like your vocals, your bass, your other instruments, and your drums. With a paid subscription, you get access to those extra stem separations, so splitting your instruments into other instruments. But keep in mind, the quality of those stems is not always going to be the best, so you do have to weigh that option. You get access to their synth plugin, and you get MIDI separation, so you can extract the MIDI from the chords in the files that you upload, which is pretty cool. With LANDR, you're going to get access to the Stems plugin via a LANDR Studio Standard or Pro subscription. With that, you're getting unlimited MP3 masters, unlimited distribution, 36 wave masters, 1,800 sample credits from the LANDR samples library, and you're also going to get tons of plugins that are available through LANDR's plugin bundle. For instance, the LANDR mastering plugin, the FX Suite, LANDR Composer, all the way to plugins from companies like IK Multimedia and Arturia, to even DAWs from Ableton. So pretty much everything that you're going to need in order to make music, to master that music, and to release it. Moises is another option that also has a free plan where you get 5 basic stem separations per month, which also includes key and tempo changing, which I do think is a pretty cool feature, as well as key and chord detection. You're also going to get access to their AI Vocal Studio, which is basically an AI vocal changer. And lastly, for value, we have LALAL, which offers 10 free minutes of stem separation. Then of course, after that, you're going to have to pay to refill your minutes. The problem here is that you have to use those minutes for each and every individual separation that you want. And that can add up pretty fast, especially when you're having issues with the website. Now, this also suffers from the same fate of the multi-track separators where the quality is not good. So even though you're paying for it, you might not want to utilize it. If you want the best consistency in your sound, the most accurate splits, the overall best value with everything that you're getting for what you're paying, then LANDR is going to be that option. Whatever you decide to choose in the long run, I'm sure it's going to be the best choice for you, and if not, you can always switch to one of the other ones. With that being said, that's it for today's video. I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Stay legendary.